Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from traditional_hour_483. AITA for going behind my wife's back and telling her pregnant sister that her husband is cheating on her. I have been married to my wife for 3 years. I am 27 and she's 26, my SIL is 30, and my POS bill is 31. I always had a close relationship with my SIL, we are friends, also has a decent connection between my BIL. Not that close, but we often talk and get along. My wife and her sister didn't get along as much as you would expect from siblings. It wasn't just normal siblings rivalry, but constant fights and arguments. Anyway, 3 weeks ago, when I was having dinner with my friends, I saw my BIL with another woman. They were just eating. I didn't think much of it. I wanted to go and greet him. But I kept talking to my friends. After a while, I saw that he gave a light kiss to this woman. I was so shocked. I decided to not confront him. And when I got back to my home, I told my wife everything. I told her that her sister is getting cheated on, and we need to tell her. My wife said we should talk to my BIL instead of telling her sister, and we should not break their marriage because her sister is pregnant. I was like, WTF? So, what is she's pregnant? Her husband is a cheat. I tried to convince my wife multiple times that we should tell her sister the truth. I told her that I know you guys don't get along, but she's still your sister, and this isn't right, but she asked me to stay out of it. I tried my best to convince my wife, but she either ignored me or said we shouldn't break their marriage. I had enough of her. And yesterday, I told her that I am coming clean to my SIL. She and I have a great bond, and I can't and won't betray her, my wife said. If I tell her the truth, she will not talk to me. I replied, I won't talk to you either, if you don't want to do what's right. Today, I told my SIL the truth. I went to her place and told her everything. She was doubtful, and she asked me to leave. After a few hours, my SIL called me, and she was crying, and said what I said was the truth, and she shouldn't have doubted me and kicked me. She said she's leaving. I asked her, where would you go? Do you have money? She said she does, but not that much. I wired her a bit and said she should call me if she needs help. And she thanked me and said she will only use the money I sent if it's necessary. Otherwise, she will return. My BIL called my wife. And well, my wife lashed onto me and said I ruined her family and her sister's life. I said I thought the moment we got married, your family is mine and my family is yours. Anyway, why TF are you defending that POS so much? What about your sister? She didn't reply to me, and she's not talking to me either. I tried to talk to her and convince her that it was the right thing to do, but she wouldn't talk to me. So I said, fine, stay angry, and if you want to divorce me, then go ahead. I think I have nuked my marriage. Do not know if what I did was truly right. Update. It's been a few days since I told my wife's sister that her husband is a cheat. Just to clarify to all the weirds, no, I am not in love with my SIL. I don't have any inappropriate relation feelings for her. I respect her. And she's family. In any case, yesterday I asked my wife why she is pissed and wanted me to not reveal the truth to her sister. I know you guys hate each other, but you guys are siblings. My wife said it's not our place to interfere. I asked, are you okay with her sister being cheated on? She said she isn't, but it will, and has ruined their marriage because of my stupidity. She's pregnant, and the child needs his father, and so does the wife. I was so shocked when she said this, like, WTF? I asked her if I were to cheat on you, would you forgive me? She said yes. I also asked her if she ever cheats on me, would she hide it from me? She also said yes to that. I was so shocked I asked her if she knows what she's saying. She said yes, and she's confident. Just because you had with someone else doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer and break the family. I had no words to say. I told her that I also sent my SIL money. She started screaming at me and said I shouldn't have helped her, despite knowing she doesn't like her sister. I said if that's what she thinks, then it's better if we just divorce. She got angry and screamed fine and started packing her bag. I tried my best to stop her from leaving. I told her that I love her, and I just did what I felt right. Nobody has to suffer betrayal like this. She said wasn't the right time. I asked her, so when should we tell her the truth? After she gives birth, because it will worsen her PPD, or years after she gives birth? She will just blame us. She said we should have just kept quiet and left it alone. I tried so hard to stop her, but she didn't listen to me and left. I tried to contact her and her parents, her friends, but they don't know where she is, and instead started interrogating me and saying I am her husband, and I should have taken care of her and I should know where she is. I even visited my BIL to confirm my suspicions, but I didn't see her car or her belongings anywhere. I hate that I am being blamed for just revealing the truth, and my wife leaving me right away without a second thought. I was so damn pissed. So today I called my sil and told her that she can stay at my place because I am going to my parents, and my wife left and nobody knows where she is. She told me she will try talking to her parents, but after a while she called me and said that their parents don't know where she is. I told her to think about herself and come over and stay here instead of blowing up her money. Now I am at my parents and my SEL is in our home. Maybe I was being petty, but I hate that my wife gave up on me and left without a second thought. I don't know whether she's cheating or cheated, or she would truly cheat on me and her own blood sister with a family relative over feuds. One thing is for sure though, I cannot trust my wife anymore. She hurt me. OP is not an AH for telling her sister-in-law that her husband was cheating on her. Rather, OP's wife is an AH for trying to hide the truth and holding the views that she would forgive cheating in her marriage. So, I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. And OP gets nothing? Let's now jump onto the next story from gold_wind_5888. AITA for crying. When my boyfriend let his best friend's wife alter the dish I made for dinner? My boyfriend, 28M, and I, 22F, met at work 2 years ago. Technically, I was working part-time during undergrad, and he was a customer. But after a couple of months, we started going out. I really love this man and nothing has happened on this scale before, so I'm very confused about it. My BF has a very tight group of friends. I am well acquainted with them and their girlfriends. One of them, Dave, just is married to Ellie. Ellie is an excellent cook and often hosts dinners, and everyone brings a dessert to those dinners. I am the youngest in the group, so most times they brush off my requests for contributing or bringing in a dessert. However, the last time I asked Dave and Ellie if they wanted anything extra like wine or some sweet dish for dinner, they said I could bring one of those sweet dishes I make for my boyfriend. I'm Indian, and even though I can't cook as well as my mom, and I'm in a different country for studies, I called my mom up and had her teach me properly how to make a specific Bengali sweet, which is my favorite. I had my friends taste it, and they said it was great. My boyfriend ate some and said it was excellent. Except, last night, I greeted Ellie and kept the dish in the kitchen. When the food was brought out, and my boyfriend told everyone I made it, I saw that someone had added cinnamon powder to the sweet. You never have the sweet with cinnamon powder. The dessert tasted like cinnamon, and I felt horrible. Though everyone said thank you and it was good, I think my face gave it away. And my boyfriend took me aside and said that Ellie had told him that my sweet looked too white and thought some cinnamon might bring some color into it. I don't know. I just felt awful and I started to tear up. My boyfriend then defended Ellie and said that his friends already think I'm a child and not make a big deal of this, and we will talk about it. I told him Ellie asked him first. Couldn't he have told her not to add cinnamon to the sweet? He told me he didn't think it was a big deal and asked me to drop the topic on the way home. I didn't text him goodnight, and this morning he said he was sorry and said my crying made him feel like an awful person. I don't know. Now I think I overreacted. AITA. Update. Ellie saw this post. My boyfriend texted me to see if it was me. I said yes. He said we needed to talk. For safety purposes, my best friend will be here. I don't know. I never expected my post to blow up. Update. He said he needed space from the relationship. I think with the way this post blew up and what happened because of a post, I should clear up some things. I never asked if I should leave my boyfriend for this. I asked if this was an overreaction, my crying. But having thousands of people tell me this was racially charged, Ellie wanted power, my BF, etc. My brain went haywire. BF called yesterday, and when I got there, his house, with my best friend, Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was crying, and Dave looked really pissed at me. My BF told me to sit down, and Dave started with how could I make a post that most of the people in the dinner party would recognize and know and could shame Ellie and my BF. My BF was silent and wouldn't even look at me and was only shaking his head. It felt like I was a kid, being scolded by my parents with my elder sibling disappointed in my actions. That is what I felt, and it looked. I admit, it was very spineless of me, but Dave went on for like a minute, and I was just looking at my BF, waiting for him to defend me. I asked Ellie, why would she alter my dish, after telling me to bring an Indian dish? She said she thought Indian food would be brown. This woman has more Indian friends than me, and she thinks Indian food is brown. She grew up in the UK, FFs, and I felt so defeated. The comments, my friends and people around me telling me his friends came first to him, not me. He said he didn't think the sweet was a big deal. I told him I would never let my friend alter something he spent 3 days learning, getting people to taste it, and got his mom involved in. He saw I put a lot of effort into it, so why let her alter it? Why couldn't he ask me? Ellie started to cry and say that she wasn't being racist, and she wouldn't know that I put effort into it. And now she couldn't host dinners again. I said I used fake names, so why does it matter? Unless she and Dave went around telling people. BF told me he didn't expect this from me. My best friend piped up that he expected that my BF would have a FNG spine, so I guess they were both disappointed. My GF now EXBF told me, in front of Dave and Ellie, that he needs some space. I told him to get lost. I don't know what my best friend said to him after that. Considering I left BF's flat, I kind of tripped in the metro station. So now I'm crying on my best friend's couch with an ice pack while his BF keeps giving me peach schnapps, and my relationship has toppled over. I wouldn't have stormed out had he looked at me once. He just looked 100% on Dave and Ellie's side, and acted like I was the one with the problem when she caused me hurt. If his friends come first when they cause me hurt, where would I have been if I decided to marry this man? My friends are good to me and are acting like I'm some fragile glass. I even heard my best friend and his brother whispering loudly from the kitchen, and his elder brother wanting to threaten him via Insta DMs. I hate that this has come to this, considering I have always been the mom friend to my friend group. I'm drunk while writing this, so have some grace in the comments. Also, if you'll be an incel like those people in my DMs, telling me I'll never keep a man if I'm this dramatic, please go away. I just thought I needed to update. That's it. Thanks, guys. Edit. Guys, this is the first time I've faced what y'all have been calling racism. TBH, I didn't see Ellie putting cinnamon into my roseola as racism. I was just hurt that my days of hard work was ruined. That's it. I understand I need to work on my self-esteem and not let people walk over me. My best friend's elder brother, he's a doctor, and is super pissed at my ex right now because he didn't know what happened. Booked an appointment with a therapist he knows, as he thinks I need mental help to not normalize aggressive behavior. I'm sorry for ranting on Reddit, but I guess that's where I am. Both my best friend and I will be going. He had been there for some time before. And the situation is tense at home because Dada, Bestie's brother, didn't know what was happening and tore my friends a new one for not protesting when Dave said to me. I still haven't told him it was over a Reddit post and that I'm writing here. I feel awful. And I don't know how to tell my mum she was right. I wish I never went out with him. One of my ex's friends, from the dinner party, asked me if I really left my ex over a dessert. So I guess that's what he told people. It hurts. I know it shouldn't, but it hurts. I think it is partially my fault. I shouldn't have let myself be treated like this. There were signs and I ignored them. And now I think I'll never have another relationship because it feels like a horrible, anxious feeling. OP is neither overreacting nor being overly dramatic here. Her being upset is completely justified here. In this scenario, OP's boyfriend is an AH for belittling her culture and undermining her cultural values. There are huge red flags. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from throwaway_icicle. AITA for kicking my ex out of his daughter's birthday trip after he kept insisting on bringing his stepdaughter. For the last few months, I 32F have been planning my daughter's, Rose, 13th birthday. For her birthday, I have been planning a week-long trip to Greece. Rose has been obsessed with Greece for the longest time and has been begging to go there forever. And now I have finally saved up enough to give her a special birthday. The problem, however, is with my ex, Alex. Ever since I started planning the trip, he has been pushing for me to invite his stepdaughter, Mary. For some context, Alex and I broke up a few years after Rose was born due to cheating during the pregnancy. We lost touch for a year or two before he came back asking to be in Rose's life. I agreed to co-parent with him, and things were going well, all things considered. That is until he got married to his new wife, Sarah, who already had Mary from a previous relationship. Sarah and I get along really well, and so do Mary and Rose. The issue is not with his new family, but with Alex. Ever since he got married to Sarah, all his attention has gone to Mary. At first, I understood. He needed her to get comfortable with him being her new dad. But it has reached the point where he barely even puts any effort with Rose. He has missed several of her important competitions and events, as well as her birthday, just because he had to take Mary to the dentist. or Mary needed someone to pick her up from school, or he wanted to take Mary to the movies. All are excuses he has actually used when I confronted him about his absence in his daughter's life. I should clarify that I have no issues with Mary. I love the kid, but my issue is with Alex acting like she is his only daughter. I have talked to him about this several times, and he always uses the excuse that Mary needs a dad too, before telling me to stop acting selfish and to appreciate he was in Rose's life at all. While planning for the birthday, I didn't invite Mary and Sarah deliberately, so he could spend time with Rose on the trip. I did ask them beforehand if they were okay with it. Mary doesn't like traveling anyway, so they both agreed to not come. Alex, on the other hand, has been refusing to accept this and kept pushing for me to invite her anyway, saying it will be good for the girls to hang out. I have been refusing to budge, and it all came to a head last week when I asked Alex to confirm the dates, and he said he wasn't coming unless I invited Mary. I obviously said no, but he didn't back down. I finally had enough and told him that if he wouldn't come unless Mary came, then he shouldn't bother coming at all. He tried to argue, but I haven't spoken to him since then. He has been blowing up my phone, but I honestly don't have the energy to deal with him. Some of my friends have been calling me asking why I uninvited him and saying I was acting like a... My mom agrees he was being an unreasonable, but also said I was being cruel by kicking him from the trip entirely. My sister, however, agrees that he shouldn't come at all. I was very sure of my decision before, but now I am starting to think I overreacted. I don't want Rose to think he doesn't care enough to come at all, but if I agree he will spend the entire trip with Mary, I know he will because he has done it before, and I don't think that is much better for Rose. Everyone is divided, and I need to be sure whether or not I am overreacting. Am I being the jerk here? Edit. I was not expecting so many comments. I didn't expect this to get as much traction as it did, and I am having some trouble answering them all, and I won't be online for long. So, I hope this answers your questions. The first I am seeing is that my ex is Mary's dad. That wouldn't be possible. I have met her father. She looks a lot like him too. Does my ex have bad intentions with Mary? I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I think he thinks of her more like the daughter he has always wanted. They also share many interests. Are Mary and Sarah okay with all this? No. They have been trying to convince him to let it go, but my ex is very stubborn. I also asked them not to be involved, so the drama would die on its own. Is this what Rose wants? She really wanted her father to come. She loves the man a lot, but I will ask her since it is her trip and her choice. Would she want Mary to come? Yes. Rose looks up to Mary and the two get along. Even without my or my Sarah's involvement, they are naturally friends. If you have any other questions, I will try and find the time to answer them. For now, thank you all for the support, as well as the valuable advice and insights. I feel much less stressed about this. I will have a chat with Rose and update you all when I can. OP is not an AH, rather her ex is an AH for being overly demanding and insisting on taking her Mary on the trip that OP has exclusively arranged for her daughter. OP's ex is being entitled and is an AH. As for scores, I would rate OP's ex 3.5 and OP a 0 on the AH scale. Let's now move forward onto the next story from Piers Esti, close 2404. AITA for uninviting my cousin from my wedding because of the election. I, 24F, am getting married in late February to my partner of 6 years. We are having a larger wedding, in part because my family is massive, so there will be about 200 guests, especially in comparison to some of the other family members I have invited. My cousin, 49M, and I are pretty close. He has been an uncle figure to me for most of my life, but he was very close with my dad, so I was considering asking him to walk me down the aisle. My dad passed last year. That was until tonight. Obviously, an election can cause a lot of tension, especially in such a polarized political sphere. I expected tension. When I posted a short rant about my disappointment, I expected some pushback from my family. What I didn't expect was my cousin to come in guns blazing, calling her the N slur, we are white, and a slut. When I told him I didn't appreciate how he spoke about her, he went on an angry rant about how Kamala is horrible, how I'm horrible for voting for her, and how my fiancé is a C slur. He is East Asian. I felt as though the only natural way to respond was, "Cousin, I am so disappointed that you would speak about me and fiancé in that way. You are no longer welcome at my wedding as you clearly don't respect my family." My cousin stopped responding at that point, and my aunt messaged me saying that my cousin is probably drunk, and that it was too far and to uninvite him. It honestly may have been. This cousin has a history of being extreme when he is drunk, and he always drinks on election night. But I feel like this was a line he should not have even approached. Maybe I was too harsh. AITA? Was I too harsh? Update. Hi everyone. Thank you to the people who read my original post and responded genuinely with sound advice. I took all of your advice to heart. Before I get to the update, I wanted to address a couple things I saw in the comment section of that post. Firstly, there were a lot of comments calling this story fake. I really wish that were the case. I wish this were a story I just wrote for shits and giggles to post on Reddit for karma. Sometimes people drink and are unkind when they are drunk. Sometimes people are racist and don't show it openly. Another thing I saw was people getting a little confused about was my family tree. My cousin is old enough to be my dad-uncle, but he is my first cousin. My dad was his dad's younger brother. The aunt mentioned in the story is not that cousin's mom, but my dad's younger sister. Now to the update. My fiancé and I discussed how to move forward during his lunch break yesterday. He told me I could proceed how I wanted, and he would support my choice no matter what it was. I told him I was sticking with my decision to uninvite him from the wedding, and I was considering going completely no contact, depending on his response to being uninvited. My fiancé was relieved at that, and told me to keep him updated. As an aside, my fiancé was so supportive and empathetic throughout this whole thing. He held me when I cried, and offered up the idea of moving to a safe state. As of right now, we are looking into Illinois, Washington, and Minnesota, if any of y'all live in those places. I'm just so lucky to have him. Later in the day, my cousin responded to my comment uninviting him. All he said was, "You can't uninvite me for this. I was drunk. You know I didn't mean it." There was no accountability taken or apology. That response really made me pause. In vino veritas. In wine, there is truth. That is something I kept seeing in that comment section, and it was the first thing I thought when I saw his response. I knew he meant it. If he didn't mean it, wouldn't he apologize? So, I messaged him privately and I said, "Hey, cousin, I will be sticking to my decision to uninvite you. I cannot have someone at my wedding that is even remotely okay with calling my partner something like that, especially since you didn't apologize. I would like to keep some distance for a while too. I need to think through this." He saw it right away and was typing for a while, but eventually responded with just a "so I guess he realized it wasn't worth fighting me on this." And he still didn't apologize. I also messaged my aunt at that point. I said, "Hey aunt, after what happened last night, I did a lot of thinking. I'm accepting of other people's opinions, but no matter how drunk cousin was, it's no excuse for him spewing such hate, especially towards fiancé and me. At this point, it isn't about difference in opinion, it's about respect. He showed that he doesn't respect me or fiancé as people, so why should he be allowed to celebrate our marriage? If you still consider his behavior acceptable, let me know so I can remove you from the guest list too." My aunt came back and apologized for defending him, and she said that I was right to do what I did. When my fiancé got home, he and I talked about what all happened, and I checked with him to make sure he was okay with my aunt being there. If he wasn't comfortable, I would uninvite her. We decided that she is on thin ice, but she is still invited. My fiancé also brought up that my cousin was my original choice for who would walk me down the aisle. He asked me if I had considered what I would do there. I hadn't yet, so we went through all the possibilities, including me walking down the aisle on my own, as someone suggested. I do want someone to walk me down the aisle though. It was always supposed to be my dad doing that, but as I mentioned in my last post, he passed away in 2023. The plan was that my cousin would hold a photo of my dad while he walked me down my aisle, so my dad could be honored in that way. We both agree that it was the best way to honor my dad at our wedding. I decided what I wish was my choice from the beginning. My mom's brother, who has always loved my fiancé and has always fought for equality in the United States, will walk me down the aisle, holding a photo of my dad. My mom will also walk beside me down the aisle. Thank you all again for your honest feedback on my situation. I really appreciate every single one of you. I hope this is the end of it. OP is not an AH, rather her cousin is an AH for her racist and disrespectful comments about OP's fiancé. No matter OP's cousin was drunk or not, his behavior is unacceptable, and OP did a wonderful job by setting boundaries for her fiancé, and it is crucial for a healthy relationship. As for scores, I would rate OP's cousin 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the last story from Brendan the Jet. AITA for being upset at my wife, for her not being angry or upset at her brother for what he did to me. A year ago, my wife's brother was moving out of state with his fiancée. They only had one vehicle at the time that they shared. With the move, they really needed a second. I had a very reliable spare vehicle that I never drove. I had a work truck and another main vehicle. And then my wife had a vehicle and a work vehicle as well. She really wanted me to sell my spare vehicle to her brother. I explained how it wasn't a good idea. I didn't want to mix business money with family. If something happened down the line, they would make it my fault somehow or guilt me, etc., etc. My wife persisted. My BIL and his fiancée were struggling. He couldn't support the two of them, and getting a second vehicle was crucial to them both keeping jobs in the new state. So, I relented. The vehicle was KBB at 5,300, 6,000 USD. Very clean little commuter. Perfect for what they needed it for. I only wanted to do something good and help my BIL and make my wife happy. That's it. Everything else. I even thought about just giving it to them until my wife dissuaded me. So instead of giving it away, I sold it for an extremely low price, 750 USD. Everybody was happy, including me. I even went so far as to tell them that they could make payments. They said they had to give me something. I told them to come up with whatever they could. They were moving September 18th, and I told them they didn't have to make a first payment until November 1st. I wanted them to get settled first and whatnot. They came up with $225. Then they moved. Before the move, my BIL would respond to my calls or texts almost immediately. After the deal, nothing. I chalked it up to the move and stress and being busy and finding new jobs and all the things that come along with moving to a new state. No big deal. I wasn't pestering him in any way. After all, he had until November 1st. But still, I'd text something like, "Hey man, how's the move treating you?" Or something like, "Hey, just thinking about you guys. Hope everything is going well." Crickets. I didn't think anything of it until I found out that my wife was talking to him very regularly. So, the 1st of November rolls around. Crickets. Then the middle. Then the end. Crickets. From November to May. Crickets. Almost complete radio silence. He maybe only reached out twice, each time lying and promising something later, in the week or month. In May is when I find out that he has came back to Colorado several times since Sept. This infuriates me. Mostly that my wife knew and didn't say a single thing. Nothing. She also hasn't said a single word to him about me, or the car deal since the day after the deal. Just carrying on with him as if nothing's wrong, as if it never happened. It finally ends bad a month or two after that. We hash it out. He tried to say I'm such an for asking for the money 6 months later when he's clearly struggling, and we're supposed to be family, and that I clearly don't need the money, so why can't I just off and give him the vehicle already? I get pissed. He says some awful, completely ungrateful, entitled PS. I find out that he pretty much ruined the inside of the vehicle. Up the outside too. I'm just done with the whole situation. I then find out that he's been using and abusing, emotionally, monetarily, and even physically, my wife and her family for years. I cut him out of my life while realizing how truly pathetic and tragic her older brother really is. My wife and I got into a big fight back then. She said I was being dramatic and overreacting, like this was just one big misunderstanding or something. Time passes. We fight a little more, but we get over it. She never really says anything about it, yet she continues talking to him. And of course, like everything is fine, never mentioning me or the car deal. I move on thinking that maybe I was overreacting and actually being dramatic. She made me doubt myself, and she kept making me think, who gives a about 750 USD after all? So, I forgive her. Get over it. Don't think anything of it. Then, this last Friday, she tried to invite him over to stay the night with us, without talking to me about it or planning or seeing if it's okay. Nothing. No words. Just answers the phone when we are on the couch and says, "Oh, you're outside. I'll come let you up." I say, WTF, who's that? Usually when one of our family comes to stay, we know weeks in advance. We plan it, talk about it, go over it, etc., etc., like every normal couple does with a guest. She says, "Oh, it's my brother. He's staying the night. What's the big deal?" She looks genuinely confused and perplexed. She says she told me. She didn't. She mentioned it in passing, Yeah, Eric is coming here, then on to Utah, and then back to Tennessee. The last time a family member stayed, we knew about it 3 weeks in advance. We prepared. She asked if it was okay, just like I would do if it were my family. We cleaned, talked about it, figured out XYZ, XYZ, etc., etc., but a 6-second statement with no response from me does not equal a confirmation LOL. I say, either he gets a hotel, or I'm going to a hotel. You have 30 seconds to decide, and I started packing. She sends him on his way, paying for his hotel BTW, and then doesn't understand what I'm so upset about. Again, she says I'm being dramatic and overreacting, and this is all my fault, LOL. I'm so shocked at her confusion and dramatic motions that I don't even want to speak a single word about it with her at this point, because I'm afraid of what might happen or what we might say to each other. So I just let it be, and think we will revisit this when we are both calmed down and not so emotional in a few days. The next night, she goes and sees her brother in another city, asks for me to go LOL. I obviously deny. She goes to dinner with him, catches up, whatever. That's when I begin to see that something isn't right. And now, I'm doubting and seeing her differently. What do? AITA? Am I overreacting, being dramatic? Please help. OP is not an AH here, and his frustration is completely justified. OP's BIL is an AH for his irresponsible behavior, and not paying for the vehicle he bought from OP. Not only he, OP's wife, is also an AH for enabling her brother's behavior. As for scores, I would rate OP's BIL 3.5, and OP's wife 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from commenter_in_chief. AITA for wanting to cut ties with my rude and entitled daughters manipulated by their mother? I have been in a contentious divorce for almost longer than I was married. It never ends. I have 2 daughters, 20 and 12. The elder as an adult is free to associate with whom she wants since she has aged out of the custody battle. She spent most of her time from 11 to 18 years old in a 50-50 joint custody arrangement. For her sister, 12, her mother has ferociously, and continues to this day, sought to punish me by limiting my contact with her. Although she too spent a period of time in joint custody, in my jurisdiction, a requisite of joint custody is that the parents can collaborate. When my ex learned this, she immediately cut all communications with me and fought me on every issue, so that at the moment she lives with her mother and I see her once every 2 weeks. I have financially supported both kids beyond what is required by law, because the mother refuses to pay her part, and with all of the other matters of controversy and the slow court system, we haven't even yet arrived at the financials. Theoretically, I should be reimbursed for the overpaid child support once a decision is reached, especially with the eldest, whom I am supporting while she gets her education. She attended an excellent university in the town, where my GF lives with her son, 2 hours between my town and hers. Housing is also extremely expensive in that town, like top 10 worldwide. And with a decade-long legal battle, my credit is ruined, so I had my daughter move in with the GF, and she pays a small rent for the room. She has constantly complained about that living arrangement. The GF's son is too loud, they cook foods she doesn't like, etc., etc. She wanted her cats with her when she went to school, but my GF can't have them, so my daughter's BF took them in. She basically spends all her time at the BF, and leaves her messy, almost hazmat bedroom locked with a key. So it's a constant reminder to my GF that she no longer has a guest room. To top it off, my daughter doesn't ever acknowledge the GF or her son. She sneaks in and out at all hours, does her laundry after midnight, so half the time no one ever sees her. Earlier this year, one of her cats died, and it was devastating. For the whole family, she was old and well loved. She had a terminal cancer, and to keep my daughter from having a complete mental breakdown, I paid thousands for treatments to keep the cat alive, long enough for my daughter to come to terms with reality and let her go. My ex, in the meantime, flipped out when I asked her to contribute to the vet bills, getting angry at my daughter for it vicariously, and abandoning her when she was in the middle of a visit and helping her mourn. My daughter then fails every single one of her first-year university exams and drops out unceremoniously. She gets a job at a bar for a while, then they fire her because she's not friendly enough to customers. Now she works in retail, but still expects me to pay her the stipend I provide her every month. She is angry that I have her pay the minimal contribution to my GF for the room, since she doesn't stay in it after all. And in her mind, I only do that to make it look like I have more expenses, so I don't have to pay more child support to her mom for her sister. Now, her BF has moved out of his parents' home and into his own little apartment, where he can't keep pets. So now the surviving cat is with my ex. My daughter travels back to our city to visit the cat and my ex, but never visits me. When I'm with my GF, she is never around, and I'm reminded of her absence every time I walk to the kitchen and see her big foreboding locked door. She complains we don't hang out like we used to, but makes absolutely zero effort to communicate with me. If she texts me ever, it's because she needs something. When I text her, all she ever answer is, okay, yeah, and a series of dumb emoji like the thumbs up or the shrug. Recently, I was having a real down moment with a chronic health issue she knows I have. I asked her to come hang out with me so we could watch movies, maybe play video games like the old days. She's a gamer girl, and I'm her very uncool, uncoordinated, bad at gaming dad. She told me she couldn't come visit because her sister was with me, and if her mom found out she came down to visit me, she would get mad. I'm not just broke, but in ever-increasing debt. I don't have anything for myself because I give everything to my kids, and their deadbeat mom doesn't give her part. She's not a homemaker, but a PhD, just in case you were wondering. Now to the point. I'm exhausted. I work full-time, but I wear rags that are falling apart. I just got a new pair of glasses for myself, since my 5-year-old ones were so far off prescription, they pretty useless anyway. Progressively worsening eyesight is part of my chronic health issue. Just today, she was here in town with her mom, but didn't say anything to me. I found out when she was already en route back to her BF. We celebrate Thanksgiving on Saturday, because that's when I'll see her sister. But she asked to leave early so she can go visit her cat and stay at her mom's. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, and I'm hosting 20 people. But really, all I care about is my kids, because it's been our tradition forever. Finally, I wanted to plan a surprise for both my kids, since I have the little one this year for Christmas. There's a musical they are both obsessed with, and I want to fly out with them to see it. When I told my daughter of my plans, I didn't want to tell her the details because it's a great Christmas surprise. She said, I've been promising my mom forever I would go there with her, so I can't go with you. It would just stress me out. The little one is starting to have similar attitudes. After all this time, I'm finally to the point I don't care anymore. I don't like either one of my daughters. They are entirely self-absorbed, rude and entitled. They disrespect my GF. They ignore me. I'm ready to just quit my job and leave the country to live in poverty alone, just so no courts can touch my wallet. Can't have anything if I don't give anything. And because it hurts so badly to see my daughters growing up to be terrible people, I would rather never see them again than have to bear to see them act like that. AITA? TL. Daughter. My 20-year-old daughter is an entitled. Am I instead the asshole for dreaming of running away and cutting ties so I can at least live for me once? OP is not an AH for going no contact with her entitled daughters. He is suffering from complex family dynamics, and her daughters took advantage of him. OP's ex-wife manipulates the situation by limiting OP's communication with his daughters. OP's reaction is 100% justified. So I would rate OP's ex-wife 2 out of 5, OP's daughters 1.5, and OP gets nothing. Let's now move on to the next story from past-house-2508. AITA for being disgusted and just saying okay when my fiancé broke up with me. I, 28F, had been with my fiancé, Alex 34, since 2020. We met at a friend's party, hit it off, and have been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then, he has been working at the uni. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly just weird. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples. He told me we were going to paint our walls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, for f***'s sake, forget it, and never brought it up again, even when I asked. Another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, forget it, it's not a big deal. This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on, whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work, he would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about. The apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days. And somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then, on Monday, I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming. And after the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I want to break up." Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me. First, because I didn't pursue my academic career further, even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, "It's my money, so I have the final say." That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our crockpot. Then, he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters. Only, he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving, and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt. But after that rant, I was just disgusted. I looked at him, probably with a disgusted expression, and said, "Okay." He lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay to our breakup? I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, "Typical, of course you're holding the apartment over me," and started ranting again. So I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent, no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-by-50 financial split. I make good money, and am happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was our money, because we were building a life together. Of course, I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared. As long as I felt he was working towards something, and wasn't taking advantage of me, I was fine with it. More than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split, to being a seething complaining about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him at this point. I don't know, should I have reacted differently? Update. To start, Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail, subscriptions, and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, Amun, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now on to what happened. Last week, I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around, grabbing coffee, and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently, Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there. But later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me," and "Was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting, and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. It feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend, I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully, he left without causing a scene, but it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't, I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote his best friend about the situation, but the plea of talking to him. He said he would. I'm seriously considering getting a new phone number and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Final update. Thanks for the concern and support I've received. I'm fine. Really. A lot of people suggested things like getting a restraining order, but I just want to clarify that it's not as simple as walking into an office and asking for one. The process involves proving there's an immediate danger to your safety, providing evidence like texts, calls, or witnesses, and then attending court to get approval. It's not something you can do lightly or without solid proof. And no, I'm obviously not getting a gun. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues, and I want to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong, but I'm not a doctor, and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise. For what it's worth, I don't actually feel like I'm in danger. In the past month, these were the only 3 incidents that happened. I don't think he's actively stalking me so much as he just knew my patterns. The bar we were at is my favorite spot, and it was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there. When he showed up at my apartment, he knows what time I usually get home. The city tour is the only thing that might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything. Anyway, this is the end of it. Yesterday, Alex came over with his mom and one of his friends. At first, I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I ever saw him. I agreed, mostly because his mom and friend were there, and I figured it would be more awkward to argue on my doorstep. When we sat down, Alex admitted that he was going through a crisis. He told me he was mad at me, but he didn't know why. He said he doesn't like me, that I annoy him, but that he weirdly still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He assured me there wasn't anyone else on his end either. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, hates everything right now, and that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't, and that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone for a while. I didn't say much. I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work, and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me for everything and said he was sorry for how he acted. Then he just got up, grabbed the few things he had left at my place, and walked out. His mom was inconsolable. She kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay and that she didn't need to apologize for him. She cried a lot, and his friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I don't really know how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over. Part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. Mostly though, I just feel tired. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out, but it's not my responsibility anymore. OP is not an AH for breaking up with her boyfriend because his behavior was so disrespectful and humiliating, which cannot be justified. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Butthole-Umbrella. AITA. If I skip my Sil's child-free wedding because I can't find adequate childcare? My husband and I have been turning this dilemma over for months, and we decided it might be time to put it to the internet with all the facts laid out. My SEL is getting married in a destination wedding roughly 800 miles from where we live. She is doing this over a 4-day event where she rented a massive lodge for all 30 guests to stay and hang out together the entire time. She has requested no children at the wedding, and specifically spoke to my husband and I that this also applies to our 3-year-old daughter, who is the only child in the entire family. The issue is that we live near my husband's family, and they are all attending the wedding, so no one is available to babysit our daughter during that time. Further, my family live over 600 miles away in the opposite direction of the wedding. We do have friends locally we would trust, but one is just about to move away, and the other will have just given birth, so they're not able to help. We don't trust a babysitter for 4 days, and we don't have a nanny or anything like that. His entire family is very upset about the prospect of just my husband attending and me staying home with our daughter, to the point where they're bringing it up every couple of weeks and heavily pressuring us to figure something out. They really want us to send her to my family. My biggest concern with that is I only trust 2 members of my family to watch my daughter for an extended period of time. My 2 oldest sisters and my aunt. My dad, who had full custody of me, was highly neglectful, and to this day doesn't know how to take care of a child. My mom never grew up and couldn't provide a safe environment away from drunk strangers, smoking, and drugs. I moved out of state the second I turned 18 for a reason. My aunt just took in her own grandchild and her 90-year-old mother, so she can't handle another toddler. Of my sisters, one has toddler twins and is a school teacher. As the wedding is during the school year, she's not available for the whole time since she'll be juggling her own 2 kids and work. And my other sister is a NICU nurse with a really irregular schedule. This is on top of any expenses it would take to actually get my daughter to my hometown, get to the wedding, and back to my hometown, and then back home. As a last resort, we offered to find our own accommodation at the wedding destination and find a local babysitter for the actual wedding events, also all at our own expense, but she rejected that idea wholly. She said she wants everyone at the lodge, and it won't feel like the whole family is there if we stay off-site. She also implied that having our daughter even that close is in violation of her preferences, since she doesn't want a child over at the lodge ever at all. So this is the part where I might be the We could technically fly in a friend we do trust to stay at our house with our daughter for the duration of the wedding, and she's even offered to do so. My hesitation here, though, is that she has 2 kids of her own, one of whom is very high needs, and I'm technically her manager at work, and worry that creates a conflict of interest. So I told her no, but didn't tell my SIL about this option. But at this point, I'm mostly just fed up. Even if my friend flew up, I'd be anxious the whole time about my daughter. I don't want to be away from her for 4 days, leaving her in the care of someone who is basically a stranger when I'm so far away. I'm not preventing my husband from going. He will definitely attend no matter what. It's his sister. But I've told them I'll be staying home. Everyone is very upset with us. My husband is upset because he feels in the middle. AITA? Should I just suck it up and fly out my friend? Should I send her to my family anyway, despite my concerns, and just make them sort it out? Should I continue to search for alternative options? Adding that I'm also just a little upset about my daughter being specifically excluded, because this is the second time his family has done that to her. They all surprised my BIL in the Bahamas this past summer, and she was excluded from that event too. I stayed home with her then also. She is the only child in the family in over 25 years, but it's hurtful that they consider family events so important, but don't include the whole family. I add this because this is definitely contributing to how far I'm willing to bend over for them, and this might be contributing to status. OP is not an AH, and her concerns are valid. Her SIL is an AH for unreasonable demands. Honestly speaking, the very idea of child-free wedding is nonsense, I think. So, for me, OP-SIL is an AH for trying to exclude children from her wedding, and I would rate her 1 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.